two cables that are twisting in opposite directions. All right, so that's the first cable row.
Oh, and it's caught on the hair clip. Oh, of course it is.
Hello, so I have a little bit of a different type of project for today. If you're familiar with my channel, you'll know that I primarily do crochet projects. However, today I have a knitting project, and it's based on an article of clothing that a character wears in an anime. So not something that I typically do, but my partner and I started watching Frieren a little while ago. I think we're over halfway through the first season now. The character Fern wears this cowl type scarf in a lot of the episodes. And as soon as I saw it, I was kind of intrigued and wanted to try to make it for myself. So I sat down a few days ago and started figuring out a pattern. I did a little bit of a test to make sure that it worked, and I'm fairly happy with how that came out. Today, I'm going to be fully knitting the project and taking you along with me, and I will leave the pattern down in the description below in case you want to make this for yourself as well. When I started looking into yarns to use for this, I couldn't find a whole lot in light purple. What I ended up with was this one, and this is Caron All Day Wool, and it's 80% acrylic and 20% wool. It's not quite the right color. Fern's scarf is more of a blue purple, and this leans a little warmer. So this is the color Mulberry. So other supplies that I'm using for this project is 8mm knitting needles, and I'm using circular needles. It's not necessary, you can use straight needles for this. This is just my preference and what I happen to have in the right size. And then a cable needle as well. And I'm using a J-style cable needle, but any type of cable needle will work. And then for finishing, I'm just gonna need a pair of scissors and a yarn needle. When I was coming up with a pattern for this design, it took me a little while to figure out how I wanted to execute it. Looking at reference images of the scarf, again, it's animated, so it's kind of difficult to see exactly how it would be constructed. And I considered doing braided cables, but when I looked at it closer, it didn't really seem like a braid. It almost looks like there are two sections that are kind of coming together, and then that just kind of repeats all the way around. So I'm doing double cables rather than a braided cable to get that effect. So essentially it's two cables that are twisting in opposite directions, and then I'm going to have two of those double cables stacked on top of each other. And all of this is going to be done in stockinette, except I wanted to make sure that the two sets of cables didn't kind of blend into each other. So I'm doing one stitch in between each of the sets of double cables in reverse stockinette, just to give them that little bit of definition. So I'm going to hop into this project. If you want to follow along with me, you are absolutely welcome to, whether you are a fan of the Frieren anime, if you are cosplaying as Fern, or if you just think that this is a really cute scarf and want to make one for yourself, please feel free to do so. So let's get started. I'm testing out a new camera angle here, so hopefully this doesn't look too weird, and hopefully my head isn't too much in the way. Okay, so I am gonna pull out the middle here, which if you've watched any of my videos in the past, you'll know I struggle with. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna start this with a long tail cast on. I tend to use that for my knit projects. It just gives a nicer edge, and we are gonna be sewing this at the end anyway, so it's not a big deal. If you wanna do a regular cast on for this, it's fine. I just like the stretchiness of a long tail cast on. I'm always really bad at estimating how much yarn I actually need for it though, so we're gonna just guess about there. I'm not going to do a tutorial today on how to do a long tail cast on, but yeah, if you're not familiar with how to do it, I would suggest looking it up because it really is superior, I think, to just your basic cast on. So anyways, I'm going to cast on 33 stitches. So for the first row, as I mentioned, this is primarily in stockinette, but there's going to be that one stitch right in the middle that is reverse stockinette. So I am going to knit 16, purl 1, knit 16. So that is row 1, and it might look a little long right now since this is actually going to be the width, but because this technically has 4 cables in it, it's gonna pull everything tighter when we start twisting our cables. So then for row 2, we're just gonna do the opposite. So 16 purl, 1 knit, 16 purl. So then for rows 3 and 4, we're just going to repeat rows 1 and 2 again. Row 5 is where we're going to switch things up a little bit. So this is the first cable row. So for our cables, we're doing 4 of them, and they are each 8 stitches. So we're going to need to take the first 4 stitches and put them on our cable needle. So each of our cables is going to be 8 stitches wide. So I'm going to take the first 4 stitches and slip them onto my cable needle. And for the first cable, I'm going to hold them in front. So then we're just going to knit the next 4 stitches normally. At this point, if you're following along with me, you can either knit directly from your cable needle or slip the stitches back on to your left knitting needle. Just make sure you're keeping them in the same direction. And then we'll just knit those normally. So that's the first cable done. For the second cable, we're going to go directly into it. There's no stitches in between. So again, I'm going to slip the first 4. But this cable is going to twist in the opposite direction, so I want to hold these cables to the back and then knit the next 4 stitches. And then again, I'll just put these reserve stitches back onto my needle. And again, you can work directly off of the cable needle, but because this is a smaller diameter, I'm wanting to keep my stitches relatively the same size. So I'm just going to put them back onto my regular needle just to ensure consistency. And then this can get a little tricky because the stitches get a bit tight when you're crossing them over. But again, just going to knit these 4. So that's the first section. And then as I mentioned, we have the 1 stitch in between the 2 sections. So I'm just going to purl that 1 stitch and then start on the second section. So now we're just going to repeat the same thing that we did. So again, for the third cable, we're going to do the same thing as the first. So slip the first 4 stitches and hold it in front. And then I'm going to knit the next 4 stitches. And then knit these 4 stitches to complete the third cable. And then for the last cable, again, it's just slip 4 onto the cable needle. And again, we're going to hold these to the back. And then these can be transferred back to the needle. And then knit those. All right, so that's the first cable row, and you can see already that's tightened up our stitches a lot. So it had been probably close to double the width, and it's shrunk it down quite a bit. So now that I have the first cable row done, I'm going to go back to just kind of repeating the first couple of rows. So we did the cable row on a knit row. So the next row is going to be a purl row. So again, it's going to be purl 16, knit 1, purl 16, and then I'm going to switch back to knit 16, purl, knit 16, and I'm just gonna keep repeating those 2 rows for 9 rows. So it's gonna be purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, and then on the 10th row, we're gonna do another cable row. So then once that's done, it's basically just rinse and repeat. I'm gonna just keep repeating those 10 rows until I have 10 cables. So that's gonna be 9 repeats of those 10 rows. So I'm just gonna work away at this, and then I'll come back and show you what I'm doing to kind of finish off the last few rows and then finish off the project. Okay, so I've got the first full section done, just to give you an idea of what this is looking like. So this, I guess, will be turned this way. So you can kind of see how there are the 2 sections that are kind of coming together to kind of create that bumpy pattern that Fern has on her cowl, and then the kind of separated space between the 2 sections, and then again a repeat at the bottom. So I'm going to just continue working away at this, and I'll check back in probably tomorrow, because this is going to take a little bit of time to finish off, and I'll show you what I'm doing just for the last few rows, and then again to finish this whole thing. Okay. I've now finished my 10 cable rows. So the last row that I've done here is my 10th cable row. And because I started kind of halfway through the repeating pattern, so I did the 4 kind of regular rows before my first cable row, I'm gonna do another 4 regular rows after this cable row just to kind of fill out that last kind of section between the cable rows, and then at that point I can cast off. So I'm just going to knit those last few rows, and then I will show you how I'm doing the cast off. I I just knit an additional 5 rows, so that rounds out the 10 row repeat, including what I did at the beginning. So now at this point, I am going to cast off. And I just wanted to mention that the yarn I'm using is a super bulky weight, so number 6. So if you are looking to make this scarf for yourself and you can't find this exact yarn, then anything in a super bulky weight should work. And I was using 5-ounce balls, and this is all that's left of the second one. So you are going to need probably 8 to 10 ounces, and I would probably suggest getting 10 just in case. So I'm going to cut the end of my yarn now, but I'm going to leave quite a long tail because I'm going to do a sewn cast off. I'm not sure if there's another name for that. But basically I have yarn needle and I'm just going to kind of sew back and forth through my stitches. So I want to leave quite a bit because I'm going to use it to cast off, and then I'll use that same tail to sew my 2 ends together. I think probably a couple of arm lengths. We'll go with that. And then I'll just show you up close what I'm doing here. So I'm just going to walk you through this cast off method if you're not familiar with how this is done. So I'm basically just taking the end of my yarn and I'll thread it onto my yarn needle. And then what I'm going to do is just take my needle and go through the first 2 stitches. Because I cut my yarn so long, this is gonna take a little bit. I'm sure I have way more than I need here. I just wanted to be extra cautious so I didn't run out. And then once you have that threaded through, then you just go back through the first one. Pull that through, and then you can take that first stitch off of your needle. And from there, it's just rinse and repeat. So again, through 2, back through 1, and then slip that off the needle. So I'm just going to continue with this until I've reached the end. This is what the cast off looks like. And this is my preferred method, but if you have a different method that you would like to use, that's totally fine. This method does take a little more time and effort, but I do think that it gives a little nicer finish than just your standard cast off. So now that all the knitting is finished, I am actually going to do one more thing before I stitch the 2 sides together, and that is to block this. Because this has so much cabling in it, it is kind of tight. So I want to block this to hopefully loosen up the fibers a little bit. I think it would be more comfortable to wear if it's not quite so stiff, and it'll hopefully give a little bit more definition to the pattern as well. So let's give this a soak and then I will pin it down. So I've got the piece all pinned down now, and I'm just going to give it a few hours to dry. So I will check in with you then and we can finish this off. Okay, so I threw together a little closet cosplay. I don't have anything remotely close to her little jacket, so this sweater will have to do, but I do happen to have a navy blue dress, so I've got that on. I tried to do my hair like hers as well, even have a little silver clip. Obviously, I don't have the length or color of her hair. I did, however, fun fact, have purple hair a very long time ago. I think it was 2008, so I'll maybe insert evidence right here so you can see. Anyways, I have finished the scarf. I started blocking it over 24 hours ago. It's still a little bit damp, but I've still gone ahead and stitched that up because I only have so much time to work on this. So I'm gonna have to just deal with it being damp. So I just used a mattress stitch to stitch the two ends together. It looks a little wonky, but it's kind of hard to avoid that with the cabling. It's just gonna do that. So that's gonna be at the back anyways, so not a big deal. But I will put this on, show you what it looks like. Hopefully not muffle my microphone too much. Oh, and it's caught on the hair clip. Oh, of course it is. There we go. So again, it is still a little bit damp, so it's kind of collapsing on itself a little more than it should be. That kind of gives you an idea of what it looks like. I think the size came out pretty much perfect. So because it's a super bulky weight yarn, it's got a nice weight to it, should be nice and warm. And this yarn has some wool in it too, so that'll make it even warmer. Overall, I'm really happy with how this came out. I think it looks relatively accurate to how it does in the show. Please do let me know what you think down in the comments below. And also let me know if you have any interest in seeing any other makes from other animes. If there's a character that has a knit or crochet looking accessory in an anime and you want to see me try to recreate it, please leave that in the comments down below as well. But that's it for today's video. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you again soon. Bye.